Welcome to Sprint Zero, Episode 4. My name is John Russell, and I'm joined by my co-partner crab in crime, Mike Gowland. Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Hi, John. I'm good. How are you?
Nice. I'm good, thank you. We are going to be talking about the importance of prompting and quite a lot more besides. But first of all, we're going to speak to our guest today, Dona Sarkar. Dona is a force. You may have heard the terms "do the thing" and "voluntold." Well, this is where they originate. Dona has been in various roles at Microsoft over the last 18 years, where she's been at the forefront of the latest tech. Her latest role being Chief Troublemaker for Copilot and AI Extensibility. We've seen Dona speak multiple times at keynotes and sessions at community events, and most recently at the South Coast Summit last year, where Dona opened Mike and my eyes to AI and that we needed to get on board ASAP. From then on, it's safe to say we've been in the AI rabbit hole ever since. Hello, Dona. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much, John and Mike, for inviting me to Sprint Zero. This is fun. I love this. This is cool because I know you all have so much knowledge and wisdom to share with our audience. And it is such an honor to come crash you today to see what's top of mind for both of you.
So whereabouts are you at the moment?
So right now I'm in Portugal. I did the keynote for that one Microsoft partner called AvePoint. They have a sales kickoff in January. My colleague Dan did the one in Virginia, and I did the one here in EMEA. I think I got a better deal personally because Portugal. Though the Virginia audience is also really lovely. So that was fun, though. I got to talk about AI, wave my arms around theatrically, and give them a ton of homework. So I was pretty happy.
Lots of boxes ticked then.
Exactly.
Yeah. So first of all, what I wanted to kind of find out really is obviously we've seen you a few times speak, but it'd be nice to get a bit of your background and really and kind of tell us your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. It's actually extremely boring because I know a lot of people in the power community and AI community have fascinating backgrounds from different careers, and mine is not. I grew up in the US in a city called Detroit, Michigan, which is the automotive capital of the US. And my parents both work in automotive industry. I went to school for computer science because it was the new hotness in 1998, right? The Google guys had just graduated college, started Google, become billionaires overnight. And my dad, very, very, very ambitious about me, he said, I'm sure you could be a billionaire doing whatever the heck these people do with the search. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm sure I could be a billionaire doing the search. So I studied computer science. Turned out it was really hard, but I did it anyway. It was one of those eye-opening things where you realize if you've never done the thing before, it's going to be hard. This is not new information. But, I was someone who's never coded in my life until I was 18. Nowadays, you meet so many people who are like, oh, I've been coding since I was 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. But back in 1998, no one did that. That was not a common phenomenon. So I went to school for computer science. I got a job in Seattle, Washington at a company called Siebel Systems, who did CRM software back in the day. And that was a company who was going through massive troubles. They had layoffs every Monday. And every time someone got laid off, they'd go get a job at a very large company down the street called Microsoft. And the big problem I had was deep and utter imposter syndrome. I said, here I am at my first job. I'm a software developer working on middleware, a sync engine. And I don't have the qualifications to work at a big company like Microsoft. I'm going to get laid off from my first job. I definitely am not qualified. So that was my first dosage of imposter syndrome. And I had to kind of talk myself through it and get over it and say, Donna, you're going to have to just apply and do the thing. And that's where, I started talking to myself very aggressively. And I joined Microsoft, got an offer, shockingly, and have been there since. It's 19 years. I've had, I feel, the coolest jobs in the universe, though, because I was a software engineer on Windows for a long time. I got to work on the first version of HoloLens when it was a secret and no one knew about it. I got to run this thing called the Windows Insider Program, which is a big global community of Windows fans who love to preview things. And then I got to join all of you on the Power Platform side when it was relatively newish. taking it from something that a set, very unique group of people knew to something mainstream for just traditional companies, governments, etc. And of course, I did a brief stint leading accessibility tech for Microsoft. And over the last year, I've been fully immersed in the AI verse. It actually started because I thought AI is such an amazing assistive tool, assistive tech for people with disabilities, because I'm dyslexic and writing long, copious paragraphs is a humongous pain. And I thought, why not have ChatGPT or Bing Copilot do this for me? So originally, my passion for AI came out of solving my own problems around disability. And then I realized, oh, this is actually useful for everybody. So I've been living in the AI verse for about a year. And what I'm really hopeful is that people understand that it is truly a transformative tool, but it's not a replacement for humans. Very much a way to augment the way we live, the way we work in a good way. And I know, everything in the media will suggest otherwise, but huge believer. So that's work. I also have side hustles. I love a good side hustle. I'm an author, have been for 20 years. I have my own fashion line called SummaryDona Studios because I'm Dona. And I opened a wine bar recently. And by recently, 2 weeks ago.
And that's the one called Side Hustle, right?
That's called side hustle because, obviously. So here's the funny thing. People are like, how do you do all these things? And my answer is badly. But, right? It's badly. But now I have this AI assistant thing to help me, so it's less bad.
Do you think it truly makes a difference to you?
Oh gosh, it really does, especially for things where I am an expert, but I don't have time to do the research. So for me, so much of it is the research portion. So I'll give you an example. I had to build a wine menu, and I know exactly what kinds of wines I want to serve to go with our food. But I don't have time to now look at every single winery in Washington State, because we try to stick local and support local wineries, and look at what they're offering this season and what matches up flavor profile wise with what I'm looking for. That would take weeks. And trying to farm that out to someone who doesn't know about wine is completely unhelpful, right? So I used Bing Copilot actually to do this. And I said, find me flavor profile similar to this wine that I really like, that I had in Italy, in these wineries, these 10 wineries. And it came back with some beautiful results. But of course, I had to try them all to make sure, I'm not lying. But that's how I designed the wine menu. I designed it in a week, the whole thing, end to end, from ordering to tasting to writing it down to shipping. Other people are like, designing a wine menu takes 6 months or more. And I said, you know what? I believe you, but I fundamentally don't have time. And some people might consider it cheating, but I consider it getting product to customer fast. Because customers don't care who did this work; they care that it was done.
Yeah,
that's so true. I've had the same experience with GitHub Copilot that I don't know why I didn't sign up to it sooner, but I signed up to it around the end of November.
Yeah,
and I can write C#, maybe not very well, maybe not as well as somebody who's been doing it for 18 years, but why would I spend the 4 weeks researching how to use one particular SDK when I could just get GitHub Copilot to get me started, and then I can just fit the logic in around it.
Absolutely. And, I've been writing C++ since 1998. Okay. It's my first language of all the things to know. And I know what's in every freaking library on the planet just because after this many years of doing it, but finding it, what was that function called? Right. That is an expedition. So I think of this as being just, my brain, but way fast. So it's just so helpful for doing completion of stuff, or even just using the GitHub Copilot chat thing to say, what is the best function to do this thing? I use that a lot. Here's what I'm trying to do. Make a data structure to host all my wines. What is the best way? And they were like, fool, just use an array. I'm like, okay, fine. Why am I getting creative? So it's really stuff like that. GitHub Copilot did not say fool, just so you know. I translated that.
Yeah, talking about using. I've got the ChatGPT Plus subscription, and I was thinking today. I woke up this morning. I think, I probably need to save some money somewhere. it's things are a little bit difficult at the moment over here, cost of living crisis, all of that kind of stuff.
But we've got to fund the podcast as well, John, haven't we?
Yeah, and then I thought, actually, I can't get rid of that. It's so integral now to my work plan kind of thing, and it helps me. Like I know you say about your dyslexia, but I've got ADHD, and I find it really hones my thoughts into one place, and even to the point where I've started getting into writing a bit of Python. Now, I've never coded in my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Look at
Really?
I struggle with PowerFX.
Hang on, sorry, John, you're writing Python.
Yeah, I've been playing with the OpenAI key and all that kind of stuff to
Look at you. Who I even local, John.
I never ever touched that.
I'm so happy. See, look at what AI is doing. It's turning everyone into coders. It makes me so happy. I love this. Okay, so not to go on an infamous tirade, but anyone who thinks AI is going to put devs out of a job, I'm like, who do you think wrote it? Like, it's just so funny. I'm like, this is the strangest thing to claim to put out of work. Out of all the jobs, I said, this is the job you chose. It's going to be the opposite. We're going to need more devs than ever because now every company on the planet is going to want to fine tune the model to do their own thing. And guess who they're going to hire? People who know Python, JavaScript, blah, blah, blah. Right? Yeah. So we're going to be employed forever. Did you see we're still looking for Cobalt devs and Fortran devs?
Yeah.
Still looking, by the way.
Maybe that's something to get into, John.
Yeah, Python, I know, but Python is like such a hard language. I'm just telling you it's hard because to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. It's not logical. And also the weird syntax is real weird, but they say you get used to it.
I mean, I know it's used a lot for data science, isn't it? But what you're saying about the syntax, is Python the one where you need to have your indentation correct?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, it's indented by spaces.
Yes, spaces matter. So none of this bracket, things that we're all used to.
Yeah,
like, we learned from math class like spaces don't matter. Caps don't matter. Here they matter. They matter a lot. And if you mess up one space, your thing is not, and it doesn't compile. It runs. Right. I'm doing air quotes. And that to me is stressful too. I'm like, what do you mean it runs? Oh, there it is, and it's broken. The debugger tools are like okay, right?
Yeah. The thing is, I quite like that it's quite strict.
Because you like the guardrails.
That I like about it.
It's that ADHD then. You do well with the guardrails.
It is. It's like hyper focus on what it needs to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't like JavaScript then.
No, I hate it. That's why I come speak to you every time I need to use it.
Yeah, JavaScript is like C++, but without the compiling and easy.
And without the rules.
Yeah, without the rules.
Is it a string? Is it text? Is it?
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you feel like, VAR. What is VAR? Whatever you feel like today. What is VAR feels like being? It's a Monday. VAR's in a mood. I can't believe we're having the most dorky conversation. I love this.
The conversations with Mike usually get pretty intense like this, or they go completely left field, which I love as well.
I think we've got our episode title there. Most dorky conversation ever.
The most dorky conversation ever. I love it.
Can you tell us more about the Power Platform advocacy team you created?
Okay, so I have always been a high code dev, right? Forever. And one day I was asked by upper management to say, do you want to go work on this thing called the Power Platform? And I say, what in the heck is that now? They say, oh, it's low code. I said, what is low code? They're like, it's like Power BI. And say, oh, I like this because then I don't have to make charts and graphs. They're like, exactly. So I fell in love with it, actually. I didn't think a high code person could love low code, but mainly it kept me from having to do the things I don't like doing, like making UX. I hate making UX. It's so bad. I don't like writing automation like from scratch. It's so bad. So I just fell in love with the platform and all the things it could do so easily and so fast. And then I fell in love with the community. I thought you all were just the coolest people I've ever met. And partly because you chose to be here as adults, right? That's the thing about Power Platform community that's so different than, say, .NET or Windows Insiders or, C++ people. You chose to be here. You made a conscious choice as an adult to change careers to come into this field. So, you worked hard to get here and you chose it because it's going to give you better opportunities. And you knew that. So I feel that the community has a sense of gratitude that most communities don't, not towards Microsoft or the product, but toward each other, right? And I love just the feeling of the Power Platform community, and I see it in every country, which is you all want to pull other people into it because of the transformational impact in your lives. And the number of people who've said Power Platform has changed my life is fascinating to me. That to me is fascinating. Like how many? Yeah, exactly. Everyone's raising their hand now. And that to me is really interesting because, yeah, code has changed my life, but I don't go tell everyone that. But you all do. You say all the time. So I fell in love with the community. And then I realized, like, hey, we need to do this at Microsoft as a thing, not just me, Donna, but we need to go and advocate for the Power Platform to global communities, especially for people like me who may have no idea what low code is or think that it's real. So the point of the advocacy program at the beginning was go talk to all the high code people and say, you don't need to write .NET UI from scratch. That's a giant waste of your life. Don't do that. Instead, use this Power Apps thing and then extend it as you need to. And also enable the people at your company, like your HR, legal, finance, executive assistants, to solve their own problems. So that was the point of the advocacy program. And then I got to hire the most amazing people, like some of them, like April Dunham. And then when I left the program to do my accessibility thing, handed it over to her, and she's just done a killer job. So she's got now Scott Duro, Eliza Benitez, Daniel Latzkowitz, just legends. And they're all very different backgrounds, but still share that vibe of the Power Platform community. And I love seeing the advocacy team all from the community. I think that's extremely important for the Power Platform specifically, because you're not hiring Power Platformers out of school. That's not a thing. Right?
Unless you're Lewis.
Yeah, except Lewis. But he's like, I should drop out of school and Power Platform now. I'm like, no, you're going to finish school and then Power Platform.
Yeah.
I mean, what you said then about changing your lives when you come into this space, and it does to people who are maybe listening to this for the first time and have not heard what Power Platform is. It can sound a bit cliche, but I remember exactly when I realised this was for me, and that was actually back in 2019. Like my mental health at the start of 2019 was really, really bad. It was there's photos of me, actually a photo of me at Ignite at the Excel Centre in London, where I saw you present for the first time. Where if you look at me then and look at me now, it's completely different, really. And I went to that thinking that I was going to learn a lot of technical stuff, a lot of stuff about Power Platform, about Power Automate, etc. But all I did, I came to the Humans of IT part and just stayed there all day. I didn't go anywhere else, and that's when I met Samit. And like Samit's a legend, and what he did at Heathrow, that happened a while ago now, but that was transformative for his career. And I thought, well, Samit's smashed this. I'm sure I can do, maybe even if I did like 10% of what Samit's doing, I would improve my life exponentially. And that's kind of what happened. And then that in combination with, the amazing content out there from people like John Levesque in Power Automate, who he's going to be our future guest on this podcast. I'm quite indebted to him and you guys, because you were the ones that really helped me forge that path, and where I am now is a lot to do with that. Well, I say a lot, that's an understatement. It's 98% of the reason why I'm here. So yeah, it's a long way of saying thank you, really, because I think and you're still and you're still doing it as well, like South Coast Summit. We'll come to that in a minute, but sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wanted to be a developer since I was at school. I always wanted to code, but I didn't have the confidence because I didn't go through formal university degrees or whatnot. I didn't have the confidence to go and apply for jobs that would be a C# developer, which is what I primarily wrote in at the time. But actually, Power Platform was a springboard to go from, okay, I don't feel like I could be a C# developer, but I can definitely be a Power Platform developer. And actually, getting my foot in the door there allowed me to then build up on those other skills. And that was, I mean, that changed me from being in an industry in print to pivoting to being a developer, which I never imagined I would be able to do. So yeah, thank you from me as well. And I'm sure everyone listening who's gone into Power Platform feels the same.
I love that so much. Both of your stories are so beautiful because that's like the point, right? And, Charles Romana, who's been the VP of this thing forever, he opens every talk with thank you to the community first, right? And he's the only VP, by the way, that I've ever seen in my entire life. My 19 years at Microsoft, he's the only VP. And no beef on other VPs, but he opens every single keynote with thank you to the community. Like, the power of the Power Platform is the community. He says that every time, and he means it. And he always shows all your pictures. And we do that internally too. Like, whenever there's a internal, because I used to be on their team, whenever there's an internal all hands or like just a team meeting, there's always your pictures. And we're like, let's talk about community first and then product second. But that's the point, because this is one of the few products in the world, I believe, that's specifically made for humans to transform their lives. And it's such a very unique way to think about product development. Like, how can we help people transform their lives from X to Y? And we know that Y needs to exist because 500 million apps need to be written, blah, 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 right? All the things. But it's, to me, such an interesting concept where you don't go into it thinking like, oh, we're now going to build a global community of, 100 million people who are changing their lives. Like, you don't start a business like that. But now I'm like, wait, why wouldn't you start a business like that? It's the only way to start one. But it's just, I love stories like yours because I really believe that's the point of tech, is to improve people's lives. That's why I got into it, right? I didn't get into it, honestly, to become a billionaire like Sergey Brin. That's boring. Because he's like collecting dinosaur fossils and having a midlife crisis. No beef on Sergey. Okay, before all of you come at me, right? They're all like, why do you hate Sergey? No, I don't. But a lot of these very senior people who've done very well are running around looking for meaning. They're like, okay, I did the tech thing. I'm very successful. But what impact have I had in the world? What impact do I have now? And you all found it so early because of just the work you're doing, right? Not just the customer work, but this kind of work where you're giving people a platform to go share their story and elevating their careers. So you've already found the meaning. So keep doing it, honestly, because I see so many people hit like career end and then full on midlife crisis because they don't understand if they've had any impact at all.
And then the reason why I kind of doubled down on it and realized that it was, the career choice for me was back in like 2018, I think, maybe I can't remember, but there was a problem with June 2017. I don't know if you remember, but there was a massive fire at a place called Grenfell Tower in London.
Yes.
And I was actually in Portugal at the time with my family on holiday, and I was sat there and I watched that and I thought, the job that I'm in now, I need to change this because I'm not giving my all to the job and I'm not doing anything worthwhile. And that led me on a path to move back into that application support space, but that also led to me discovering the Power Platform. In lockdown in 2020, and this kind of like feeds into what you were saying about how powerful it can be for people outside of the Power Platform who don't really know what it is. In lockdown, I helped create like this Facebook group to onboard volunteers in a town called Berkhamsted, where I used to live, and I used this before I was in the Power Platform. So don't shoot me down, but I used SharePoint as a database, and I onboarded.
Sorry, we all have things we're ashamed of, John.
Right, all right.
I know it's all good, John. I honestly don't know how to spell SharePoint.
Okay.
I add like an E in the middle and like a capital small P. I can't spell those words.
And we onboarded like 270 volunteers to look after 350 streets in Berkhamsted. And that each one of those people were looking out for elderly and vulnerable people inside their street. Anyway, cut a long story short, 2 weeks later, everything was really, really quiet, and like there was no one contacting us. Like before that, our WhatsApp and email was absolutely bonkers. And we got this email from this guy saying how he basically had this is the first email he'd ever sent. He was like in his 70s. He'd been a hermit in his house basically because his wife had died 15 years ago. He only ever went to Waitrose to go and get the shopping. But because we had enabled a person in his street to come and knock on his door to check that he was all right, she opened his mind to the internet, got him an iPad, got him a phone, and his first email was to us to say thank you.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I kind of realized then that's because of, it's not really because of me, it's because of SharePoint and how we've onboarded these volunteers very quickly.
Mhm.
And that was from then onwards, I was like, right. And that led to my first consultancy job in Quantic because someone in the group worked for Quantic and said, you should come and apply. Yeah. So,
That's an amazing story. I didn't
yeah.
know that. And also, like, talk about real impact, right? Like,
Yeah.
real impact. That's not some random global impact 7 countries away. That's your neighborhood where you live.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
Mhm.
why I'm so passionate about it. And I can convey that to, if we're talking to clients and we're doing, discovery or whatever, I can convey that passion. I can get that
Mhm.
across because it is transformative for not only for me and for Mike and for other people, but also for the people that it's kind of serving in a way.
I
Yeah.
love that. That is so interesting just because you all here's what I really like about the Power Platform community. You live in the real world because you really do. And I will tell you this as a lifelong, not lifelong, but like a 20 something year pro dev. We do not live in the real world because we didn't have other jobs. We have never had a normal job. Our job has been writing code because that's what you do when you go to university to do this, right?
Mm.
And we don't understand how the rest of the world really works or how other jobs work. We don't understand how, administrators or bus drivers or bookkeepers or any other job in the world actually works. We know they use our software, but we don't know how to use it. And most devs are corralled to like some office to produce code, right? It's not like we're doing customer visits. And I will tell you, one of the most special things about Power Platform is that you all really do live in the real world. You understand real people issues, and you spend so much time with non-devs building solutions for them to do their jobs, live their lives. So it's just one of the most fascinating spaces I've ever worked in. And I think all of this, though, applies to AI because we can't build AI the way we build other things. We have to build it for people, right? And I say this all the time where teaching people to use it and identifying the biases, what it's good for, what it's not good for, is key. And that should be 50% of it, like 40 to 50% of the time should be spent on that. And I'm saying this as somebody who's quite terrible at it. But that should be the effort because without it, people aren't going to use it. And easily like 3/4 of the population are going to think this thing is stupid and won't use it at all. So I'm already seeing it where people are like, I had this conversation actually with my sister. You two will appreciate this. She's a VP of finance at a very large food manufacturing company called Cargill. Okay. So she's only ever worked in finance. She's non-technical and loudly says so. She's like, when I need to update my Windows, I call IT. I'm like, why do you call IT? That's random. Just hit the button. She's like, nope. So anyway, and she said, I know you guys are all really into AI and tech, but all of us non-tech corporate people think AI is so stupid and don't understand the point of it. And all of you who are saying it's going to transform our jobs, we're like, well, first of all, I hope not. Second of all, I don't think so. So we are kind of in our own hype cycle a little bit, right? Where we're like, okay, and now we're going to be in the plateau of productivity. But the rest of corporate world and government world don't think that at all. And this is where I think we need a little bit of Power Platform magic to spill over, right?
And when you say Power Platform magic, what do you mean by that specifically?
Okay, so here is how I've watched you all do Power Platform work, which is you form these fusion team type things where you go talk to somebody in legal or finance or operations or executive assistant, and you understand what is the issue you have actually. Like, expense tracking is hard, or corralling all of the spare parts in the office. No one knows what mice and keyboard are available. It's like not huge problems. They're small problems, but they're annoying.
Yeah.
Where do you have them listed? Oh, we have them listed nowhere. Okay, so that's a problem. Step one. So step one, you gather your data. Step 2, you make some UX to reason over that data. Step 3, you do automation and stuff to do some things in the background. But then step 4, which is teach people to use it. You spend a lot of time on that, the teaching people to use it, not just the person you co-created with, but all of their colleagues and friends. So I think you call it change management or adoption or something like this. But that concept is not a concept for pro devs. We don't know how to do that. We just don't do it. Someone gives us requirements, we write the code, we ship it to them, and we're done. Move on. I'll see you.
And don't ask any questions.
Yeah, I'll see you never. I wrote a thing. I have never talked to customers in my life like this as I have working on Power Platform. And then the teaching people to use is fascinating because it is a non-tech audience, right?
Yeah.
So usually we leave it up to IT, but now IT is like, no, you teach them. You made the thing or you helped us. So that Power Platform workflow, this is why I say low code people are the most set up to do AI, like by far. Everyone else is really not set up to do AI. Just that role of teaching people to use it and validating that it does what it's supposed to is huge. And that is where we're going to be spending so much of our effort. And I don't think people quite understand that part yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wouldn't be a podcast without us talking about AI, right? So, I mean, I think I said in the intro how integral your keynote was at South Coast Summit, and I remember me and Mike got up off our chairs and we started walking to the back of the room, and me and him were just like, right, okay, this is the new thing. We need to get on this, and we need to get on it now, and that evolved from, I think that was October towards the end of last year, last quarter. And that evolved to, me and Mike spending a bit of time apart, really kind of working out the kind of understanding what large language models are, how they work, going on a few courses.
And sometimes we need a break from each other as well.
Yeah.
It's fair.
And then it culminated in Mike and I speaking at the Bletchley Park AI and Microsoft Cloud thing that Lewis and Stephanie Stacey and Chris Huntingford have put together. I think it made me realise that that my ADHD sometimes can be a bit of a superpower, because I can do things and focus on things and get up to speed a lot quicker sometimes than maybe some other people that don't. And I do respect it for that. But I think what I wanted to ask you really is, I mean, I think we all know what it is, but I want to know a bit more about what you think prompting is, and why it's so integral to where we're going, and how important it is, not just to the people that are building the stuff with the tech, but also to subject matter experts, or to Lisa in accounts, or Steve in payroll or HR, like that kind of level.
So prompting is such a term, right? Because a year ago we didn't know what the word prompting meant, and now everybody's like prompting, prompt engineering, prompt this, prompt that. And for me, prompting is, and everyone's going to tell you something different, but I'll tell you what it is for me, which is prompting is our as natural as possible language way to get the maximum amount of value out of an AI product so we can do our job better or live our life better. And that is it. Prompting is not a new career. Prompting is not some sort of mystical magic that only some people can speak. And prompting techniques are different depending on your job, what you're trying to do, what your style is, everything. And this way, it's different than code. A lot of people are like, prompting is the new code. I'm like, prompting is definitely not the new code. Because code has structure, it has frameworks, it has formulas. And some prompting does have structures, right? Like act as role to do this. And everyone will release like prompt libraries and frameworks and all of this. And those are awesome starters. But I find the most valuable prompting is start with the starters, like templates, but then develop your own valuable ones for your industry. Because there's nobody who understands your industry and your role in it and the problems that you are trying to solve better than you. So I'll give you two examples where I worked with a bunch of lawyer people. And I thought, Donna, of the ignorant who didn't understand what lawyers did, I thought, oh, a great prompt will be draft up a contract similar to this contract to do this thing. And lawyers laugh at me and say, Donna, we would just copy paste the existing Word doc and change the words. We don't need to draft up a new contract. I'm like, oh. They're like, we don't create a new contract. You adjust contracts. I'm like, I don't know. No idea, right? They're like, why would we rely on some random LLM when we have like 100 years of contracts right here? They say what we actually use it for is research. So a huge pain is looking at, some law was passed in Portugal that allows blah to happen, or, work visas to be X many days, or accessibility law to be like this. So rather than going and trolling through 18 sites, now they would use probably Microsoft Copilot because it's connected to the internet and up to date to say, tell me about the new work visa law in Portugal and tell me how it relates to the standards in my company. Do we need to change anything? Right? So that is something a lawyer would do. I would not look up, tell me, some code standard and compare it to my code. That's random. That's so weird. I wouldn't be doing that necessarily. So much of prompting is, yes, start with the template, start with what all the thread bros tell you. Don't choose 18, choose like 3. And then really write down what works for you. And I tell everyone, don't do zero-shot prompting, which is trying to put everything in one prompt and get one answer, but go back and forth. Treat it like your intern from last summer, where it gives you an answer. You're like, okay, expand on point 1. Tell me more about this. Write down a detailed summary of what this could look like. If I were to give a talk on this, what would the key points be? So go back and forth and have a challenge to go back and forth 5 times with the same topic, because then you'll really narrow down to what the thing can do rather than treating it like an information retrieval engine, which people should stop doing. It's much better for brainstorming and creating and generating new stuff. It's generative AI. It generates. So get to the point where you're generating something based on some research you can.
And like I think you touched on it there, iteration is key.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that people who are not in this space probably will struggle to get that to start off with. You're not going to get it right first time.
Nope. And you know what I found helps? To do it as a group. To say like, okay, people, we're going to now all put this prompt into the machine. All of us do it together. Like, get on a call like this and do it. And what do you think? Is that a good answer? Is that a bad answer? And lawyers talking. They're like, it's a terrible answer. I'm like, okay, how can we make it better? And then really document, record the meeting, get yourself a recap of it, write down the freaking prompts. But as a group training, this works very well because the group collaboration, like, I didn't think of this or I didn't think of that. Very, very helpful. That's what we did as a group. And that was how we learned to prompt internally. I try to make everyone do it. And everyone's like, I don't want to prompt it.
I think that's very important because I've actually written down in big letters prompt squads and circled it.
Yeah.
Because I think that the more cross-domain specialism that you have on a team like that, the better. Because they're the subject matter experts, right? I don't know HR policy.
Nope.
Well, I know some, but I don't know all of it. I don't know payroll policy. I don't know anything to do with finance, really.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
And you can draw parallels between design thinking in that state, as well. So you're thinking of different subject matter experts, bring them all together to do a design, but actually your design is actually a prompt on how do you generate this moving forward.
That's exactly it. And some of the things you'll pick up from each other are very interesting because you're like, I would never think to ask a question like that, but that's a very good question. So I think we're just getting started though. Prompt UX right now is super dumb because it's like a big old box and no one knows what to do. But soon we're going to have like the chain of command UXs. We're going to have the Mad Libs looking UX. Like I am a lawyer looking for information on law, whatever, box. And then you type in, or you could go to the thing. But right now we're expecting people to figure out a language that they just do not speak right now until they get a little bit of help. Then they realize they do speak it. Yeah. But the UX doesn't make it obvious what they're supposed to do.
And it's interesting what you mentioned there, because I think I've talked to you about this before, about how we have the blank box at the moment and we have that chat interface, but actually will this actually move towards parameterized prompts?
Absolutely.
Where actually your product is you fill in these these specific bits of information, and then you get item generated. I know with Designer, it's very much a one box, put in everything that you need, but actually what you can do with that is start breaking down those parameters.
Right.
And actually you feed in the parameters, but that prompt's still the same. And that's a really good demonstration of what parameterizing prompts is all about. And I learned that from Semantic Kernel after your keynote at South Coast Summit. I went off straight away, downloaded that, had a little play around.
Yeah, it's very interesting once you actually get into the details a little bit more. And I'm actually taking a machine learning course, the Stanford machine learning course, because I realized that's one part of this AI thing that I don't understand as well as I would like to. Like, I can build apps all day and I can mess around with LLMs and semantic kernel and this and that, but I actually don't know how models are trained just in the world. And last time I did this, I'm not kidding, it was 1997. So I'm like, I'm sure stuff has changed by then. I took this course in college and I thought it was kind of boring, so I didn't pursue it as a study. And now people are like, no, that's like saying C++ from 1998 is the same as now. So go learn the new thing. Okay. So I know the fundamental concepts, so that's helpful, but I want to learn how to do it now. And that doesn't mean I'm going to go like train models for a living, but I want to know what it means so I can understand like what is the power of the models that we work with now. But I have to tell you, this is a totally growth mindset activity where out of all of the parts of AI, we all have to learn something. No matter how techie someone is, there's some part of it that they're not going to be super comfortable with, and they're going to have to dig in and get back into the technical chops and get their hands dirty and actually kind of do the thing, right? Not just read about the thing or, passively learn about the thing, but you kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
To get it.
So when it comes to prompting, how important is diversity when it comes to prompt engineering?
It is so important to have people who are not you to help craft prompts, because we are so myopic in our view, right? We think that everyone in the world thinks like us and writes like us and behaves like us. It is not true. Also, you don't know if certain results are right or not. Because, of course, AI is full of bias for many reasons. One, the data set is biased, but also it generates things. It's not retrieving, it's generating. So what it generates may not even make any human sense. So that's why I think having diversity on your team, on the team who trains the model, very important. The team who validates and teaches people, very important. Because at all of these levels, you need to bake in this concept of responsible AI, right? Where you're making sure that the model is returning things that are true-ish or have resources that people can go check on, that you've got a human that's accountable in the loop, that you're looking at, race, gender bias. Obviously, people know to do that. But there's bias people don't think about, like disability bias, we think about it, but also age bias. I had prompted the other day, what are some jobs for people over 60? And the answer should be CEO, airline pilot, like all the jobs, where you walk around in the world and most of the top people at companies are, guess what, over 60. Most of the pilots are over 60. Most of the doctors are over 60. So these are what it should have said. But it comes back with like volunteer at a hospital. And I'm like, sure, that's a job, but why is that the job? So it really, they're like, oh, people in 60s can often be cognitively on par with people younger than them. I'm like, often, that's everyone I know. So I found that age bias to be very strange. But it makes sense because so many people who work in the AI space are not 60. And this is age bias to me is fascinating because it's going to affect us all. Every one of us is going to be affected by it. And I said, you better solve that yesterday, because imagine you're building a resume system and it filters out anybody who graduated before X date. Because it can do that.
It's interesting saying it will when actually in some cases it already has. Like if you're younger, you can be...
Yeah. Like you can say, choose the most qualified candidate. And AI may decide that if you graduated college after 2000, you are not qualified to work on this team for whatever reason. And, I tell my fellow friends, like, you don't actually know where bias is happening. So you need to have a human in the loop somewhere and look at trends and say, like, what are we missing? Right. Yeah. And this is where critical thinking becomes very important, where we cannot let AI kind of go into autopilot mode. We really do have to use it as our assistant from last summer, who we have to make sure that we have to make sure that we're using AI correctly, like as an assistant, not as a replacement.
Yeah, because that's something that I've been discussing here around. I don't know if you know, but we've got like at ANS we have this thing called the Squirrel Club.
The neurodivergent crew.
Yeah,
Is that what
yeah,
okay.
and I've been talking to them a little bit because I think they are well placed to help on this prompting side of things when we're looking at all of this kind of stuff, because there is a wide range of people with different neurodivergent issues inside that group, and I think we're lucky at ANS to have that, and it's an amazing place for everyone to be themselves, and I think they will be integral. They probably don't know it yet, but I think they will be integral to this whole prompt validation stroke, designing prompts, thinking about, critical thinking when it comes to various different neurodivergent issues and unconscious bias.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more we go to these employee resource groups, think military folk, think older folk, think people with kids, think people without kids. We just have to look at the diversity of human experience and really make sure that we are factoring in people, because this is where we're going to just get better results and you're going to make better products. And that's just a fact. It's nowhere been more obvious than now. People are like, oh, does diversity really make better products? I'm like, if you want to make products for 8 billion people compared to not 8 billion people, sure, it's up to you, right? You make choices. How many people do you want to make products for? And that's why I really do say, like, you've got to think about different categories of human beyond your specific subgroup. Super light topics this morning. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Johnny, I don't know if you want to introduce this bit, but it's going to get a lot more serious now.
A lot more serious, hardly.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this thing called poet or prompt.
Wait there, John. We have production value.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh.
If it ever decides it's going to load, of course, Riverside would let me down after I've tested this 5 times. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
He's sorry about the music you're about to hear. That's why he's sorry, right? Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's... I'll screw it. I'll add it in post.
Okay. All right. So we're now on to our fun bit, really, for you, Donna. So this is called poet or prompt.
Oh boy.
So Mike is going to read part of a poem, and the poem is either going to be Gen AI generated or authored from a human poet, and you need to decide whether it is a poet or prompt generated.
Okay.
And we have a thing.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Lots of time went into this.
Okay.
So the first poem segment. My horse moved on, hoof after hoof. He raised and never stopped. When down behind the cottage roof, at once, the bright moon dropped.
Prompt.
So, you think that's a prompt?
Yeah.
That was actually William Wordsworth.
Really?
The Lucy poems.
Wow. Okay. I'm not good at this. I'm just telling you right now because I'm crap at poetry too.
The next one. I crack the eggs with force. I don't care about the shells. I throw them on the pan. I hear them sizzle and pop. I flip them with a spatula. I don't care if they break. I season them with salt, pepper, and a dash of rage.
Wow. This is intense. Okay, I'm going to say prompt.
That was Ragey Fry Up by Bane Chat.
Yes, Ragey Fry Up.
The next one. He cared not for the other's frown, who saw his car and heard its sound. He was a budgie with a passion, and he pursued it in his fashion.
This is so bad. It's got to be prompt.
It is, yeah, it's Budgie buys a Ferrari by
thank
Bing
you.
Chat.
I feel better. I'm like, what godforsaken, horrible poet is this? Like, I should just go into a different profession.
We've got a few to go.
Okay, go.
A few went out to help the brook, that went to help the sea. Myself conjectured were they pearls, what necklaces could be.
This feels like poet.
A Drop Fell from the Apple Tree by Emily Dickinson. So I think you actually did very well there, Donna.
Look at that.
Well done.
Wow. Okay, so I do have to tell you, the part of AI that makes no sense to me still is people who use it for like image generation or like writing poems and stuff, because I'm like, why? There's people who are way better at it in the world, right? I get it. You generate an image to make like, okay, here's the image generation scenario that I get. I'm like totally crap at graphic design. So if I draw a thing on a napkin, I'm like, make this not sucky. Like I did with the Badger thing at South Coast Summit. I'm like, make this not suck. This UX not suck. That I can see the scenario, but all the people who generate images of landscapes or like all of this, I don't understand the point because it's not real. We all know it's not real. So I'm not sure what it's for, unless it's like social media posts maybe to prove a point. So I don't quite get it yet, but maybe I'll get it, right? Maybe I'm just a bit too practical on business. I'm like, but there's so many business cases. So I may not understand the artistic.
I'll tell you what wasn't generated by AI though, was this.
Wow. This is not the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life or anything. I want everybody to see that in the whole world.
So I'm trying to convince Mike that that's our new logo, but he's undecided. I mean, it goes really well with our budget kind of theme.
This is true. You know? People will give you money to make a new logo. They'll be like, you know what? These two dudes, they definitely need a budget. So, yeah. It's. Nice I'm just saying, your Photoshop skills are way better than mine, though, because mine's.
That wasn't Photoshop.
Was it in Paint?
That was a mixture of. Was it a mixture of using an iPhone and Paint? Yeah, might have even been Paint.net.
Yeah, it's like all my amazing image generation still happens in Paint. I'm like,
Paint's amazing. I use it on a daily basis. Yeah. So we have a section called Uncomfortable Corner. And
Uncomfortable Corner.
Wow.
The scream's new.
This is amazing.
The scream's always been there, John.
So we've got this section called Uncomfortable Corner. When was the last time you felt uncomfortable, either in or outside of work? And like, explain how you felt and maybe what you learned from it and what you could maybe do differently next time when it happens.
That's such a good question. So I'll give you one of each scenario. One is, I was at dinner at this last conference sitting next to an actual machine learning expert. And he heard me speak that day and he's like, your talk was great, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. And then he's asking me like detailed questions about machine learning. He's like, what would you do to do blah better than this and that next thing? And I'm like, my guy, I'm not a machine learning expert. And he said, oh. And I thought, I'm not, but I need to learn it more, right? And this was Monday. And that's when I realized, like, if I want to work in this space, in tech for another, 15 years, I need to get over my imposter syndrome about this topic. And I dug in a little bit, right? I did a whole journaling exercise and realized, because last time I did machine learning stuff, there's a lot of stats, a lot of math, things that dyslexic people are quite shit at. And that I struggled with it last time. But now I'm like, okay, it's 20 years later. You're a grown up. You have ways to learn. Let's go. You got to dive headfirst into it. And you don't need to become an expert, but you do need to be confident enough to go have an adult conversation with your peers in this industry. So it was an uncomfortable situation, but I had to just remind myself that, I have an imposter syndrome vanishing spell, and I go through the 10 steps all the time in my head, which is first step, what are you missing out on? I'm like, well, I'm missing out on amazing conversations because I imposter out of them. Second, which part are you actually qualified to do? I'm like, I'm qualified to learn about tech. I've been doing it for a long time. And I've changed, within tech, I've changed areas 7 times now. If I can go from Windows to HoloLens dev to Power Platform to accessibility to AI, add machine learning to it somewhere. Then it's, which are you not qualified to do? And that is the actual, like, how do you do it portion? And who are experts? And I named 3 people. And how did they learn? They learned in school. I'm like, I don't have time to go learn it in school, but I can definitely do it on the side. And what is an experiment I can do? Like, I can train a model to do wine, right? I can make a wine LLM. It won't be an LLM, it'll be an SLM, tiny LM. But TLM. I can do that. TLM. It'll be a very niche project, but it might be useful for other wine people. So that's going to be my project, my experiment. And I'll let you all know what happens. But I had to get myself through it and say, okay, here's the plan, and I'm going to do this. And I give myself, like you, John, because I also am neurodivergent, giving myself like a really brutal, tiny little timeline is helpful. So I signed myself up to talk about this in April. So I know by April, I will have done this. I will have built an LLM or TLM, and I'll be able to share the story of how I did it. So just being incredibly time bound is my way of getting over this impostering and uncomfortable corner. So that was work. In life I was catching a train from Lisbon to Porto. I, of course, do not speak this language. I don't know how to buy tickets at the train station. There's no machines anywhere. It's not like London where there's giant machines. You put your machine, choose your locations. Just made no sense. It was like in the region. And I said, I'm going to end up somewhere strange. So I found like some service desk and like using Google Translate to translate in Portuguese and be like, como se dice buy train tickets in Portuguese? It was a mess. But it is like you use the tools at your disposal, right? And I'm not the first dumb tourist to roll in not knowing how to go to Porto, but help me out. It's like use tools at your disposal, ask for help, realize that you're going to struggle with this once, but once you solve it, you'll know how to do it going forward. So for now, going from Porto to Lisbon, I know how to buy train tickets. I am a train ticket buying expert in Portugal. So it's very much like being uncomfortable is part of it, but every time you are uncomfortable and move beyond it and get out of your comfort zone, you'll grow, right? Or I don't call it getting out of your comfort zone. I call it expanding your comfort zone. Expand that thing a little bit. And what's the worst that's going to happen if you don't know how to buy train tickets in Portugal?
And that's amazing because that's the point of uncomfortable corner is that those moments where you are uncomfortable, you do grow from it, or you can grow from it. You say that with imposter syndrome as well, that actually asking for help can be probably one of the most challenging things that you do.
Yeah.
But I've also found it to be very flattering to the people I ask because they were like, oh, wow, you were asking for help for this thing because you think I'm an expert. I'm like, oh, you're the expertiest of the expert. And I got a recommendation from someone to take this one. They're like, for beginners, this is great because you'll learn like the basics, you'll train a thing, but you don't need to go do like, level 700 right now, do level 100, see if you like it, and then do level 200. Very good. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, we're nearly at the end. I've just got one more question, really, and I think it would be good, Donna, to get us or volunteer us to do something. And I know that's a bit on the spot, but I quite like it because normally when you tell us to do something, it involves. It means that we go down a completely new rabbit hole. I don't know if I've got space for another rabbit hole at the moment, but you never know.
Can you volunteer me to water my pineapple?
You actually have a pineapple in your house. That's so fascinating.
I'm in England. I have a pineapple in the house. It's not surviving the winter very well.
Wow. Okay, here's what I want you two to do. Whether you take this machine learning course or not that I'm doing, I want you to understand how LLMs work, like deeply, and be able to give a talk on that to Power Platform people so they understand that it's not magic and figure out how they can explain it to others. Because you two are uniquely qualified to do that.
Are we?
Yeah, you are. Because you're very curious and you want to know how things work. And I'm seeing this as a huge gap. When I go talk to people and explain how LLMs work, they're like, why? I had no idea. I said, oh, okay, I think we should talk about that more. But we have to explain it in a human way, not in an AI researcher way. So that is something I would like you two to do because you know how they work. I would like you to translate it into words that a Power Platform person will understand, who can now translate it to something like someone in finance, legal, HR operations can understand. There's a huge gap right there that you two can really, really help with.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, let's do it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I love it. There you go. Voluntold. Makes me happy.
Nice.
You can find Dona Sarkar, the chief troublemaker for Copilot and AI Extensibility on LinkedIn, X, and in various videos on YouTube where she's delivered sessions. Links to resources mentioned in this episode will be in the show notes. Music today was provided by Ken Like Fit. You can find his music on Spotify, the link to which you can find in the show notes. Additional music in this episode is credited in the show notes. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss the next episode. This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, John.
See ya. See you later.
Dona Sarkar. Say goodbye, Donna.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us and listening to our yap. Also, you should also learn how LLMs work. Just letting you know while we're all
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm Mike Gowland. See you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.